At 1:43 inches the morning, a woman stood alone inside a diner in Columbus, Ohio. The chairs were stacked. The grill was cold. She was holding a wallet. Black leather. Heavy. She did not open it. She did not count what was inside. She did not look toward the door. She did not check if anyone was watching. She just stood there. Her hands were shaking. She set it down on the counter, the way you set down something that burns. Her name was Loretta. She was $200 short on rent this week. The wallet she just put down had $8,000 in it. Before we continue, please like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you're watching from. Loretta worked the overnight at Rosie's Diner on East Main Street in Columbus. 6 nights a week, 10 at night to 6 in the morning. She had been doing this for 14 months. The diner was not the kind of place that attracted attention. Brown vinyl booths, fluorescent lights that buzzed at a frequency only the staff could hear, a coffee machine that dripped even when nobody pressed the button, 12 tables, a counter with 9 stools, a kitchen window where orders appeared on white plates under a heat lamp that turned everything the same shade of orange. Loretta moved through it the way water moves through a pipe. Without thinking, without stopping, without wasting a single motion, she poured coffee with a precision that came from understanding what each drop cost. The pot held exactly 12 cups. Each cup sold for $1.75. The manager, Dave, had told her once that spillage was tracked. She did not spill. She poured to within a quarter inch of the rim every single time, and she did it without looking at the cup. Her eyes were already on the next table. She did not write orders down. She carried them. Table 4 wanted eggs over easy, wheat toast, no butter. Table 9 wanted a short stack with a side of sausage, extra syrup, coffee black. Table 2 wanted nothing but coffee and quiet. She knew the difference between a customer who wanted a refill and one who wanted to be left alone. She knew this because noticing was not a skill she had learned. It was a skill she had needed. When your income depends on the mood of strangers at 2 in the morning, you learn to read a room the way some people read weather. Before it changes, before it turns, her base pay was $2.13 per hour, federal minimum for tipped employees. It had been that number since 1991. Loretta was not born in 1991. The number was older than she was. On a good night, she made $47 in tips. On a bad night, 19. She knew the average because she counted every night on the bus ride home. She folded the bills into a small square and placed them in her left shoe before walking from the bus stop to the apartment. 3 blocks, no street light on the second block. She had memorized which cracks in the sidewalk to step over in the dark. She did not complain about the hours. She did not complain about the pay. She did not complain about the smell of grease that lived in her hair and her clothes and the skin behind her ears, no matter how long she showered. She did not sit down during her shift unless every table was empty and the kitchen was closed, and even then she usually found something to wipe. Her shoes were white once. They were gray now. The soles had worn smooth on the balls of both feet, which meant she moved silently across the linoleum. Some regulars said they never heard her coming. She just appeared. Coffee full, plate cleared, check on the table. Gone. She wore the same pair every shift. She owned one other, sandals she kept under the bed for the days she took Grady to the park. She had not been to the park in 3 weeks. There had not been time. There had not been energy. There had not been both on the same day. Grady was 9 years old, 4th grade at Eastgate Elementary. He was quiet in the way that children become quiet when they have been watching adults carry heavy things for a long time. Not shy. Not withdrawn. Just aware. Aware that noise had a cost in a small apartment with thin walls and a mother who slept during the day when she slept at all. Every morning when Loretta came home from her shift, she found a handkerchief on the kitchen counter. Folded. Pressed flat. Waiting. Grady had started doing this 5 months ago. He never said why. He never mentioned it. Loretta never asked. But she knew. She knew because she had caught him watching her one evening before she left for work. She was standing by the door, wiping her forehead with her sleeve. He watched the sleeve. He watched the way the fabric dragged across her skin. The next morning, there was a handkerchief on the counter. He had ironed it himself with the travel iron Loretta kept in the closet. He was 9 years old. Nobody taught him to iron. He just decided that his mother should not have to use her sleeve. He did not say this. He did not need to. He just ironed. Every morning, without being asked, without stopping. The apartment was on the second floor of a converted house on Bryden Road. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that was really a counter with a hot plate and a microwave bolted to a shelf above the sink. The landlord, Mr. Kovacs, collected $285 every Monday by noon. He did not accept checks. He did not accept late. He accepted cash in an envelope slid under his door on the first floor, and if the envelope was not there by 12:01, he started making phone calls. Loretta slept on a mattress on the bedroom floor. Grady slept on the fold-out sofa in the front room. The sofa had a metal bar that ran across the middle where it folded, and Grady had learned to sleep on his side with his knees pulled up to avoid it. He had been sleeping like that for 8 months. He did not tell his mother about the bar. He told her the sofa was comfortable. He told her he liked having the window. The refrigerator held 4 things: a half-gallon of milk, a package of thin sliced American cheese, half a loaf of white bread, a jar of peanut butter, the store brand, the one that separated if you did not stir it. Loretta kept the peanut butter on the bottom shelf because Grady could reach it there without climbing. She did not use the word poor. She did not use it in front of Grady. She did not use it on the phone with her sister in Cleveland. She did not use it when she looked at the refrigerator and counted 4 things and closed the door and did not open it again until the next meal. 4 things. That was the word she used in her own head. 4 things. Grady did his homework at the kitchen counter every evening while Loretta got ready for work. He was in 4th grade. He used a short pencil, worn almost to the eraser, and he wrote on the back of pizza delivery flyers that he collected from the mailbox downstairs. The apartment did not have a printer. The school did not send worksheets home digitally because Loretta did not have a computer. So Grady copied the problems from memory when he got home from school and solved them on the blank side of whatever paper he could find. He was good at math. He was very good at math. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had told Loretta this at the last parent conference. She said Grady had a natural sense for numbers. She said it like it was a gift. It was not a gift. It was a curse. Because Grady could count. He could count the items in the refrigerator. He could count the bills his mother folded into her shoe. He could count the days until Monday. And he could hear her voice at night, low and tight, talking to the phone in the bedroom when she thought he was sleeping. $200. That is what she said. $200 short for this week. $200 or Mr. Kovacs would change the locks. Grady heard it 3 times this month. He did not tell her he heard. He lay on the fold-out sofa with his knees pulled up to avoid the metal bar, and he stared at the ceiling, and he carried the number the way some children carry a secret about something they are too young to fix and too old to ignore. $200. He knew what it meant. He had seen what it meant. The family in the apartment next door, Mrs. Alvarez and her 2 daughters, had been 2 days late on rent last month. On the 3rd day, Grady came home from school and heard the sound of a new lock being installed. He stood in the hallway and listened to the drill. He listened to the bolts slide into place. Mrs. Alvarez's coats were still hanging on the hook by the door. He could see them through the gap where the chain used to be. Loretta heard it too. She heard it through the wall that night. The thin wall that separated their apartment from the one that was now empty. She heard the silence where a family used to be. She did not say anything to Grady. She picked up her bag, put on her gray shoes, and went to work. Friday was 4 days away. On the other side of Columbus, a black Lincoln Navigator pulled out of the parking garage beneath the Hilton downtown at 11:14 that evening. The man behind the wheel was Bennett Colfax. He was 58 years old. He had been inside that hotel for 6 hours and 9 minutes. He had gone in with a deal. He was coming out without one. The deal was a 240-unit apartment complex in Franklinton, a neighborhood on the west side of the river that had been written off for decades and was now the kind of place where developers used words like emerging and potential and undervalued. Bennett did not use those words. He used numbers. $34 million. 4 legal teams. 6 months of due diligence. Environmental reports, zoning variances, tenant relocation plans, financing structures so layered they required a diagram to explain. All of it gone. Collapsed at 11 o'clock at night over an appraisal fee dispute that should have been settled in a phone call. His partner, a developer from Cincinnati named Whelan, had decided the fee allocation was unacceptable and pulled out. Not threatened to pull out. Pulled out. Stood up. Shook hands. Said the words that meant it was over, and walked out of the conference room at the Hilton downtown Columbus on a Tuesday night in October. Bennett sat in the parking garage for 4 minutes before starting the engine. He was not angry. Anger was something he had learned to set aside the way a surgeon sets aside the fact that the body on the table belongs to someone. You feel it later. You feel it in the car. You feel it in the house. The house was in Upper Arlington. 5 bedrooms. 3.5 bathrooms. A kitchen with a center island made of Italian marble that his wife, Denise, had chosen from a catalog 11 years ago. Denise had died 3 years earlier. Breast cancer. 14 months from diagnosis to funeral. The marble was still there. The catalog was still in the drawer beneath the phone. He had one daughter, Simone. She lived in Atlanta. She worked in corporate consulting. She called every Sunday at 6 in the evening. The calls lasted approximately 7 minutes. She asked how he was. He said fine. She told him about work. He listened. She said she would visit soon. He said that would be nice. They both knew what soon meant. It meant the same thing it had meant for 2 years. It meant not yet. It meant I love you, but I do not know how to sit in that house without her, and I think you do not know how either. Bennett did not blame Simone. He understood. He had been the same kind of child to his own father. A man who worked and provided and stood in the room without ever quite being in it. Presence without connection. A body in a chair. Bennett had inherited that silence the way some people inherit eye color, without choosing it, without knowing how to give it back. He drove east. He did not take the highway. He drove through downtown, past the State House, past the empty storefronts on Long Street, past the bus station where 3 people stood under the overhang waiting for a route that would not come for another 40 minutes. He was not driving toward anything. He was driving away from the house that was too large and too quiet and too full of marble that a dead woman had chosen from a catalog that was still in the drawer. He saw the diner on East Main. Rosie's. The sign was old, red neon, with the R flickering on and off, so it sometimes read Ozie's. The lights were on. The parking lot was nearly empty. 1 car. A staff car, probably. He pulled in. He did not pull in because he was hungry. He pulled in because the lights were on, and sometimes the only thing that feels like an invitation at 11:30 at night is a place that has not yet decided to close. He pushed the door open. A bell rang, the kind of bell that diners stopped replacing decades ago. Loretta looked up from behind the counter. She had a rag in one hand and a coffee pot in the other. She did not smile. She did not greet him with warmth or performance. She looked at him the way she looked at everyone who came in after 11. A quick read. Tired or drunk, hungry or hiding. She had 4 categories and 20 seconds to sort each customer into one. Bennett landed in the 4th. Hiding. She seated him at table 7, the booth by the window, the one furthest from the kitchen. She set down a menu and a glass of water without ice. She poured coffee before he asked. Menu or just coffee? Just coffee. And maybe quiet. She nodded. She took the menu back. She walked away. She did not offer conversation. She did not ask where he was coming from. She did not say anything about the weather or the hour or the fact that a man in a $1,200 overcoat was sitting in a diner where the most expensive item was $7.95. She understood this kind of customer. The ones who came in late. The ones who did not want food. The ones who wanted a booth and a ceiling and the sound of someone else moving around in a room so they did not have to sit with their own silence. She gave him exactly what he asked for, quiet and coffee, and the particular kind of invisibility that a good server provides, which is not ignoring someone but knowing precisely when not to appear. Bennett sat for 45 minutes. He drank 3 cups. He did not look at his phone. He did not make calls. He watched. He watched Loretta. Not her face. Not her body. He watched the way she moved. She was serving 3 tables at once. A trucker at the counter who wanted a refill every 9 minutes. A couple in booth 3 who kept changing their order. A man by the door who had been nursing the same cup for an hour and needed nothing but did not want to leave. She handled all 3 without confusion. She did not mix up the trucker's decaf with the couple's regular. She did not ask the man by the door if he needed anything because she knew he did not. She cleared plates with one hand while refilling with the other. She moved from table to counter to kitchen window in a pattern that had no wasted steps. Bennett recognized it. He had spent 30 years evaluating operational efficiency. Office buildings, apartment complexes, retail chains, commercial kitchens. He knew what good systems looked like. He knew the difference between someone who worked hard and someone who worked well. Hard was effort, well was architecture. Loretta worked well. She had built a system out of 12 tables and a coffee pot and a pair of silent shoes, and she ran it the way some people run companies. With precision, with awareness, with the kind of efficiency that does not announce itself because it does not need to. He did not say this to her. He did not say anything. He finished his 3rd cup, left a $20 bill on the table beside a check that totaled $4, and stood up. He put on his coat. He walked toward the door. The wallet slipped. He did not feel it go. It slid from the inside pocket of his overcoat as he pulled his arm through the sleeve, dropped onto the booth seat, and settled into the gap between the cushion and the armrest. Black leather against brown vinyl, almost invisible. He pushed the door open. The bell rang again. He walked to his car. He did not reach for the wallet. He did not pat his pocket. He did not know it was gone. He started the engine and pulled onto East Main and drove toward the house in Upper Arlington that he did not want to enter. Behind him, on the seat of booth 7, the wallet sat in the dark crease of the cushion. It contained $8,000 in cash, 3 credit cards, a driver's license, and a business card. The business card read Bennett Colfax, Colfax Capital Partners. Nobody saw it fall. Nobody knew it was there. Not yet. 1:32 in the morning. The diner was empty. The trucker had left at 12:15. The couple at 12:40. The man by the door at 1:08. Loretta was alone. She started her closing routine. It was the same every night. Tables first. Wipe down. Check the seats, push the salt shakers to the center, straighten the menus. Then the counter, then the floor, then the coffee machine, then the register. She worked her way from table 1 to table 12. She did not skip. She did not rush. She reached table 7. She wiped the surface. She picked up the $20 bill and put it in her apron. She moved the salt shaker. She reached for the menu holder, and her hand touched something in the crease of the seat. Leather. Heavy. Smooth in a way she recognized without recognizing. The way expensive things feel when you have spent your whole life touching things that are not. She pulled it out. A wallet. Black. Thick. The leather was soft the way leather gets when it costs more than a week of groceries. She opened it, not because she was looking for money, because she needed to know whose it was. Because that is what you do when you find something that belongs to someone else. You look for a name. She found the name. She also found the money. 80 hundreds. $8,000. Crisp. Ordered. Held together with a silver clip that had initials engraved on it. B. C. She pulled the clip off and counted. She counted twice. 8,000. She looked at the money. She looked at her phone on the counter. The screen was lit. A text from Mr. Kovacs, sent at 9:17 that evening. 4 words. Friday. No exceptions. She looked at the clock on the wall. 1:34. She looked at her hands. Her hands were dry. The skin at her knuckles was cracked from hot water and dish soap and the bleach solution Dave made her use on the counters. She had stopped buying lotion in August. Lotion was $4. $4 was a gallon of milk. $200 would save her. $200 would keep the lock on her door. $200 would mean Grady would not come home from school to find a different bolt on the apartment and his mother standing in the hallway with coats still hanging on the hook inside. $200 was sitting in her hands. $200, and nobody would ever know. She looked at the money again. She looked at the text again. She looked at the clock again. She thought about the sound of the drill, the one she had heard through the wall. The one that meant Mrs. Alvarez's coats were still on the hook, but Mrs. Alvarez was not coming back for them. She thought about Grady, asleep on the fold-out sofa with his knees pulled up, the handkerchief he would iron in the morning, the pencil he used until it was too short to hold. $200. Nobody would know. Nobody was watching. But that was the thing. That was the exact thing. The words came to her the way words come when they have been placed inside you by someone who knew you would need them one day. She heard them in a voice that was not her own, a voice that belonged to a woman who had been dead for 15 years. Her grandmother, Miss Odie. A woman who washed other people's clothes for 40 years and never took a coin from a pocket that was not hers. The words were simple. They were not a speech. They were not a lesson wrapped in poetry. They were just something Miss Odie had said once in a kitchen on the south side of Columbus when Loretta was 7 years old and had asked a question she did not yet understand. Loretta closed the wallet. She did not take $1. She did not move a bill. She did not slide 100 into her apron and leave the rest. She closed it the way you close a door you were never supposed to open. Firmly. Completely. Without looking back, she set the wallet on the counter beside the phone with the text that said Friday. No exceptions. She stood there for a long time. Her hands were shaking. Not from cold. Then, she picked up the business card that had fallen from the fold. Bennett Colfax. Colfax Capital Partners. An address on South High Street. 18th floor. She put the card in her apron pocket. She finished cleaning the diner. She turned off the lights. She locked the door. She walked to the bus stop. She waited 11 minutes. She rode 14 stops. She walked 3 blocks in the dark, stepping over the cracks she had memorized. She climbed the stairs. She opened the door. Grady was asleep on the sofa, knees pulled up, breathing steady. On the counter, a handkerchief, folded, pressed flat. She did not sleep. She sat at the kitchen counter with the business card in front of her and waited for morning. 6:12 in the morning. Loretta did not go to bed. She changed out of her diner uniform, put on the only clean shirt she had that did not smell like grease, and picked up her phone. The screen was cracked. The crack ran diagonally from the top left corner to the bottom right. When she typed Bennett Colfax into the search bar, the crack split his name in half. Colfax Capital Partners. South High Street. Suite 1810. 18th floor. The website had a photo of the building. Glass and steel. The kind of building that had a lobby with security and a front desk, and someone whose job it was to decide who belonged there and who did not. She put the wallet in her bag. She kissed Grady on the forehead without waking him. She wrote a note on the back of a pizza flyer and left it on the counter beside the handkerchief. Bus to school at 7:40. Cereal in the cabinet. Back soon. She caught the number 7 bus on Bryden at 6:29. Rode it to the transit center downtown. Waited 11 minutes. Caught the number 3 heading south on High Street. Sat in the back. Held the bag on her lap with both hands. She arrived at the building at 7:45. The lobby was marble. Not the kind of marble she had seen in bathrooms. The kind that covered entire floors and reflected the ceiling lights so sharply that she could see the soles of her shoes in the surface. Gray shoes on white marble. She noticed this. She tried not to. The office did not open until 8:30. There was a seating area near the elevators. 4 chairs. Dark leather. The kind of leather that matched the wallet in her bag. She sat down. The chair was softer than anything in her apartment. Softer than the fold-out sofa. Softer than the mattress on the floor. She sat on the edge of it, not the back. She was not the kind of person who sank into chairs like these. A security guard at the front desk looked at her once. Then again. She was wearing a clean shirt, but it was a shirt from a thrift store, and it did not look like the shirts that walked through this lobby on a Wednesday morning. Her shoes were gray. Her bag was a canvas tote with a broken zipper. She was the only person in the lobby who was not carrying a briefcase or a coffee from the shop across the street. She waited. People began arriving at 8:15, men and women in suits, in heels, in clothes that did not wrinkle. They walked past her without looking. Some of them looked. They looked the way people look at something that does not match the room. Not with hostility, not with cruelty, with the quiet, automatic sorting that happens when a space has decided who belongs in it and someone shows up who does not fit the decision. Loretta felt it. She did not name it. She did not have a word for it, but she felt it in the way she held her bag tighter, and the way she straightened her back, and the way she stopped looking at the marble floor, because seeing her own shoes reflected back at her was making something tighten in her chest. At 8:31, a receptionist appeared behind the desk on the 18th floor. Loretta had taken the elevator alone. She had pressed the button for 18 and stood in the center of the car and watched the numbers climb and thought about the fact that she had never been above the 4th floor of any building in her life. The receptionist was young, professional, polite in the way that is practiced. She looked at Loretta. She looked at the shoes. She looked at the tote bag. She looked at the shirt. "Do you have an appointment?" "No. I have his wallet." The receptionist paused. Not long. 1 second, maybe 2, but long enough for Loretta to see the recalculation happen behind her eyes. The shift from screening to processing. Whose wallet? Bennett Colfax. He left it at the diner where I work last night. There is cash and cards inside. I have not touched anything. She said it plainly. She said it without apology. She said it without the kind of over-explanation that comes from feeling like you owe someone a reason for being where you are. She said it because it was true, and truth did not need decoration. The receptionist picked up the phone. She said something Loretta could not hear. She hung up. "He will be right down." Loretta sat in the chair by the window. She placed the bag on her lap. She waited. She had been awake for 26 hours. She had worked an 8-hour shift. She had ridden 2 buses. She was sitting in a chair that cost more than her rent in a building she had never entered, in a neighborhood she only passed through on the bus. She was holding $8,000 that was not hers. She was not thinking about the money. She was thinking about the handkerchief on the counter and whether Grady would remember to eat the cereal before catching the bus. The elevator opened. Bennett stepped out of the elevator. He was wearing a different suit than the night before. Dark blue, no tie. His hair was cut close, and his face had the look of a man who had slept 4 hours and spent 2 of them staring at the ceiling. He saw Loretta before she saw him. She was sitting in the chair by the window with her bag on her lap and her hands on the bag. He recognized her immediately. Not from the face. From the posture, the stillness, the way she held herself in a space that was not hers, the same way she had held herself behind the counter at the diner. Present but not imposing. There but not taking up room. He walked toward her. She stood. She reached into the bag and held out the wallet. She did not say anything first. She just held it out the way you hand someone something that belongs to them. Simply. Without ceremony. He took it. He opened it. He did not say thank you first. He counted. He pulled out the silver clip and thumbed through the bills. 80 hundreds. $8,000. He counted again. He put the clip back. Then he looked at her shoes. Gray. Worn smooth at the soles. The kind of wear that comes from standing 8 hours on linoleum, 6 nights a week, for more than a year. Then, he looked at her hands. The skin was cracked at the knuckles. Not dry. Cracked. The kind of cracking that comes from hot water and industrial soap and bleach solution, night after night after night. Hands that worked. Hands that had been working since before the sun came up and had not stopped. Then he said thank you. He said it quietly. Not the kind of thank you that people say when someone holds a door. The kind that comes after a pause long enough to mean something. You didn't take any of it. It was not a question. It was a statement. He said it the way a man says something he has already verified and is now saying out loud to hear how it sounds in the air between 2 people. It wasn't mine. 3 words. She said them without emphasis, without pride, without the slight upward tilt that would have turned it into a plea for recognition. She said them the way you say something that is simply true and does not require anything else around it. Bennett reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. He held it toward her. $500. For your trouble, for the bus ride, for doing what most people would not do. Loretta looked at the envelope. She did not reach for it. She did not step back. She stood still and looked at it the way you look at something you have already thought about, something you knew was coming, something you had already decided about before it arrived. No. Thank you. But no, it is a reward. You earned it. If I take money for doing the right thing, then it wasn't the right thing anymore. It was just a transaction. She said it simply. She said it the way her grandmother would have said it, without drama, without a speech, as if she were telling him something obvious, something he should already know, something the whole world should know but had somehow decided to forget. Bennett stood with the envelope in his hand. He did not put it away immediately. He did not insist. He stood there holding $500 toward a woman who could not afford the bus fare she had just spent and who was refusing it without flinching. He had spent 30 years in rooms where everything had a price. Every building, every contract, every handshake, every favor. He had built a career on the principle that value could be measured, that anything worth having could be assigned a number and negotiated and closed. He was good at it. He was among the best at it. He could not put a number on what just happened. He put the envelope back in his pocket. He looked at Loretta. She looked back. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Something shifted. Not in the room. Not in the air between them. In him. A gear that had been turning in one direction for a very long time clicked and paused and did not immediately start again. He did not know her name yet. He did not know about Grady. He did not know about the fold-out sofa or the metal bar or the handkerchief ironed every morning by a 9-year-old boy who had never been asked to do it. He did not know about the 4 things in the refrigerator or the rent due Friday or the sound of a drill through a thin wall. He knew one thing. He had just met someone who could not be bought, and he could not remember the last time that had happened. Bennett went back upstairs. He sat at his desk. He closed the door. He did not call his assistant. He did not check the markets. He did not return the 7 emails that had arrived since 8:30. He sat with the wallet on his desk and looked at it. He was not thinking about the money. He was thinking about the shoes. He picked up the phone and called Rosie's Diner. He asked to speak with the manager. A man named Dave answered. Bennett did not identify himself as a client or a businessman or a man who owned buildings. He said he was calling about an employee, and he asked questions the way he always asked questions, precisely, one at a time, waiting for the full answer before asking the next. How long has she worked there? 14 months. How many shifts per week? 6. Night shift only. Has she ever missed a shift? No. Has she ever been late? No. Has she ever called in sick? No. 14 months. 6 nights a week. Not one absence. Not one. Dave told him more without being asked. He said the company was restructuring. Corporate had decided to close the overnight operation at 4 locations, and Rosie's was one of them. The last overnight shift would be Friday. Loretta's position would be eliminated. He said he had not told her yet. He said he was going to tell her Wednesday. Bennett asked what her hourly wage was. Dave said $2.13 plus tips. Bennett did not respond to that. He wrote the number down. He circled it. He made 3 more calls that afternoon. He did not make them from compassion. He made them from the same instinct that had built his career. The instinct that said, when something does not add up, you look at the numbers until it does. He called a contact at Franklin County Court Records. He found a medical debt. Grady, age 8 at the time, broken arm, playground accident at Eastgate Elementary. Emergency room visit. No insurance. Total billed, $3,400. Outstanding balance, $3,400. No payments made. Not because she refused, because there was nothing to make them with. He found a utility debt. $680. Gas and electric. 4 months behind. On a payment plan that required $42 a month, which she had missed twice. He found the rent. $285 per week. Current balance owed, $200. Due Friday. He wrote the numbers in a column on a legal pad. He drew a line under them. He added them up. He looked at the total. Then he leaned back in his chair and did something he had not done in a conference room or a boardroom or a negotiation in 30 years. He sat with a number that made him angry. Not angry at Loretta. Not angry at the landlord or the hospital or the electric company. Angry at the architecture. The way the numbers fit together. The way a woman could work 6 nights a week for 14 months without missing a single shift and still be $3,400 in debt for a child's broken arm. The way the system was built so that the people who kept it running were the same people it was most expensive to be. He looked at the column one more time. Medical debt. Utility debt. Rent. A base wage that had not changed since the year he bought his first property. This was not a case study. This was not a spreadsheet. This was the map of someone's life drawn in the numbers that were drowning her. He put the legal pad in his briefcase. He did not write a check. He did not call a charity. He did not do what most people in his position would have done, which is feel bad for 20 minutes and then move on. He drove home. He ate dinner alone. He went to his study. He opened the briefcase and looked at the numbers again. He was thinking, but not about what to give. About what he had seen, about the kind of person who holds $8,000 in cracked hands and gives it back and refuses 500 more and walks away in worn shoes without asking for a single thing. He was thinking about his mother. Her name was Vivian. She cleaned houses on the north side of Columbus for 27 years. She raised Bennett and his brother Raymond in a 2-bedroom apartment on Cleveland Avenue. She took the bus to work every morning at 5:30. She came home at 4. She cooked dinner. She ironed their school clothes. She checked their homework. She went to bed at 9. She did this every day for 27 years. She never took a dollar that was not hers. Not once. Not ever. When she found cash in the pockets of the clothes she folded, she put it on the kitchen counter and told the homeowner the next morning. Some of them thanked her. Some of them did not notice. One of them accused her of stealing and then found the money exactly where Vivian said she had left it and did not apologize. Vivian did not talk about this. She did not complain about it. She ironed the next morning's clothes and went back. Bennett was 12 years old the first time he asked her about it. They were in the kitchen. She was pressing a shirt collar with the iron she had owned since before he was born. He asked why she returned the money when the people she worked for would never have known. She did not stop ironing. She did not look up. She said 7 words. Because it tells you who you are when you are the only one watching. She said it once. She never repeated it. She never needed to. Vivian died when Bennett was 31. She left behind the iron, a paid-up life insurance policy for $4,000, and a son who would spend the next 27 years building an empire on the principle that value could be measured. She also left him something he could not measure, something he had not thought about in years. Until this morning. Until a woman in gray shoes said 3 words in a lobby on South High Street and walked him back to a kitchen on Cleveland Avenue where a woman with an iron taught him what money could not buy. Loretta did not know about Vivian. She did not know that the man she had just handed a wallet to had been raised by a woman who would have done the exact same thing. She did not know that the reason he had stood so still in the lobby was not surprise. It was recognition. The bone-deep kind. The kind that does not need explanation because it lives in the body the way an old song lives in the throat. She went home. She rode the bus. She climbed the stairs. She found the note on the counter where she had left it, and the cereal bowl in the sink where Grady had left it. She checked the time. Grady was in school. The apartment was quiet. She sat at the kitchen counter. She looked at the spot where the business card had been. It was gone. She had given it back with the wallet. She was still $200 short. Friday was still coming. The job was still the job. Nothing had changed. She had done the right thing. The right thing had not saved her. She looked at her hands. Cracked knuckles. Dry skin. The hands her grandmother had raised. The hands that had held $8,000 and let go. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in a very long time, she let herself be tired. Not the tiredness of the body. The tiredness that comes from holding yourself together so carefully and for so long that the effort itself becomes invisible, even to you, Miss Odie would have understood. In 2019, a group of researchers published a study in the journal Science. The study was called Civic Honesty Around the Globe. The lead researcher was a man named Alain Cohn. The study was simple. Research teams dropped more than 17,000 wallets in 40 countries across 6 continents. Some wallets had no money. Some had a small amount. Some had a larger amount. Then they waited to see how many were returned. The result surprised almost everyone. Wallets with more money were returned more often than wallets with less money. Not by a small margin, by a significant one. In virtually every country tested, people were more likely to return a wallet when the financial stakes were higher. The researchers believed this was because taking a larger sum forced people to confront their own self-image more directly. Keeping $10 was easy to rationalize. Keeping $100 was harder to live with. The study was published in one of the most respected journals in the world. It was cited thousands of times. It was covered in major newspapers across the globe. It told a story that people wanted to hear. That human beings, on the whole, are more honest than we assume. But the study did not ask one question. It did not ask what happens when the person who finds the wallet is the person who needs the money most. It did not measure what honesty costs when the honest person cannot afford dinner. It did not track what happens in the body of a woman who holds $200 that would save her apartment and puts it back because her grandmother taught her that some things are not for sale, even when the price of keeping them is losing everything else. The study measured behavior. It did not measure sacrifice. In the United States, roughly 40% of adults say they could not cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. That number comes from the Federal Reserve. It has been roughly the same for years. 40%. That is not a fringe. That is not an outlier. That is nearly half the country. Loretta was not in that 40%. She was below it. She did not have $400. She did not have 40. She had the bills folded in her shoe from last night's shift, and the coins in the tin on the counter, and the math in her head that said Friday was still coming and $200 was still missing. Bennett lost $8,000 in a wallet and did not notice until someone brought it back. He did not check his pockets. He did not pat his coat on the way to the car. He did not realize it was gone until Loretta stood in his lobby holding it. Think about that. Think about what money means when you notice every single dollar. When you count the coins. When you know the price of a gallon of milk to the cent, because the cent matters. Now think about what money means when you do not notice $8,000 is gone. The distance between those two experiences is not a gap. It is a canyon. And the bridge across it is not charity. It is not tax policy. It is not a $500 reward in an envelope. The bridge is the thing that Loretta did, and the thing that her grandmother did before her, and the thing that millions of people do every day in this country without anyone noticing. They hold the line. They do the right thing. They do it while broke. They do it while tired. They do it while the system that they are holding up does not even bother to learn their names. Wednesday, 3 days after the wallet. Loretta walked into the diner at 9:45 for her shift. The parking lot was the same. The sign was the same. The R still flickering between Rosie's and Ozie's. The bell on the door was the same. Dave was standing behind the counter. He was not doing anything. He was just standing there. Loretta knew what that meant. When a manager stands behind a counter doing nothing at 9:45 at night, it means there is something to say, and he is waiting for the right moment to say it. She tied her apron. She checked the coffee machine. She started her routine. "Loretta, can I talk to you for a second?" She followed him to the back. The stockroom. Shelves of napkins, boxes of coffee filters, a calendar on the wall that nobody updated. He stood with his hands in his pockets. Corporate is cutting the overnight. All of them. Across 4 locations. Last shift is Friday. He said it evenly. No apology. No preamble. No softening language. Just the information. Delivered the way information gets delivered, when the person delivering it has no power to change it and knows that decorating it would make it worse. Loretta did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She did not ask why, or say it was unfair, or tell him about the rent due the same day. She stood in the stockroom and absorbed it the way she absorbed everything. Quietly, completely, without letting it land on her face. She asked one question. "Can I finish the week?" Dave nodded. She walked back to the floor. She tied her apron tighter. She picked up the coffee pot. She started her shift. She worked the full 8 hours. She served 11 customers. She made $31 in tips. She cleaned every table. She mopped the floor. She emptied the coffee machine. She turned off the lights. She rode the bus home. She climbed the stairs. She opened the door. Grady was asleep on the fold-out sofa with his knees pulled up. His math homework was on the counter, written in his careful hand on the back of a pizza flyer. He had gotten every problem right. She boiled water. She made 2 packets of ramen noodles in a pot. She divided them onto 2 plates. She put the larger portion in front of Grady's spot at the counter. She put the smaller portion in front of hers. She looked at the smaller portion. She looked at the larger one. She pushed her plate toward his and combined them. She did not make a portion for herself. She sat at the counter and drank water and watched her son sleep and listened to him breathe and looked at the ceiling where a stain from the upstairs bathroom had been spreading slowly since September. Friday was 2 days away. Friday was her last shift. Friday was also the day Mr. Kovacs expected $285 in an envelope under his door by noon. She had 85. She needed 200 more. She had 2 shifts left. If tips were average, she would make roughly $94. She would still be short. She had given back $8,000 4 days ago. She could not find 200 now. Thursday, 11 at night. Loretta was behind the counter at Rosie's when the bell on the door rang. She looked up. Bennett was standing in the doorway. He was not wearing a suit. He was wearing a flannel shirt and work boots and a jacket that looked like it had been washed 100 times. He had not come from a meeting. He had not come from a dinner. He had not come from the house in Upper Arlington. He was driving a pickup truck. She could see it through the window. A Ford, dark green, older model. The paint was faded on the hood. The bumper had a dent on the right side. It was not the kind of vehicle that belonged to a man whose name was on the 18th floor of a building downtown. It was the kind of vehicle that belonged to a man who remembered being someone else. Bennett sat down at table 7, same booth, same seat. He did not look at the menu. Loretta brought coffee without being asked. She set it down. She started to walk away. "I know about Friday." She stopped. She did not turn around immediately. She stood with her back to him and held the coffee pot and let the sentence land. She turned. "Excuse me? I know they are cutting the overnight. I know Friday is your last shift." She set the coffee pot on the counter. She looked at him the way you look at someone who has crossed a line you did not know existed until they stepped over it. "I also know about the rent. 200 short this week. I know about the medical bills. 3,400 from Grady's arm. I know about the utility debt. 680. I know your phone is 60 days from being shut off." Loretta stood very still. She was not afraid. She was angry. For the first time in this story, she was angry. Not the loud kind. The kind that goes quiet. The kind that pulls inward and tightens the jaw and makes the hands grip whatever they are holding. "You looked me up." "I did. Why?" "Because the last person who refused my money was my mother. And she was right too." He said it without looking away. He said it the way he said everything. Directly. Without decoration. But there was something underneath it that had not been there before. Something that was not business. Her name was Vivian. She cleaned houses for 27 years. She never took a thing that wasn't hers. She raised me on a bus route and an iron and a sentence I have not thought about in a long time. Until you said what you said in that lobby. Loretta did not sit down. She did not put down the coffee pot. She stood and listened. "I am not offering you money. I am not offering charity. I did not get where I am on charity, and I would not insult you by pretending that is what you need." He reached into his jacket and placed a folder on the table. Inside was a brochure. A 6-month restaurant management training program at Columbus State. Tuition, materials, certification. Full sponsorship. I will cover the training. All of it. And during those 6 months, I will cover your rent and clear the medical debt and the utility balance. Not as a gift, as a loan. No interest. You pay it back when you are working and stable and ready. Not before. He pushed the folder toward her side of the table. I started as a plumber. I bought my first property at 29 with borrowed money and a truck that looked a lot like the one outside. I know what a closed door looks like. I also know what it looks like when the person standing in front of it deserves an open one and has no one on the other side to push. Loretta looked at the folder. She looked at the truck through the window. She looked at the man sitting in the booth where he had left his wallet 2 nights ago. Why me? Because you held $8,000 in your hands and gave it back and refused 500 more and did not ask for a single thing. And because when I asked you why, you gave me the same answer my mother would have given, word for word. She did not say yes immediately. She did not say anything immediately. She stood in the empty diner at 11:20 on a Thursday night and held a coffee pot in one hand and looked at a folder that contained a different future, and she let herself stand in the space between the life she had been living and the life that was being offered, and she did not rush to close the gap. Then she set the coffee pot down. If I cannot keep up, you pull the funding. That is fair. And I pay back every dollar. That is the deal. I am not a project, Bennett. No. You are not. You are the reason I still believe the projects are worth building. She picked up the folder. She did not smile. She did not cry. She did not thank him in the way that stories like this usually demand. She picked it up and held it the way she held everything that mattered. Close. Against her body. The way her grandmother held the iron. The way the knowing lived in her hands. 6 months later, Loretta graduated from the program. She was the oldest student in the class. She was the only one without a college degree. She was the only one who rode the bus to campus every morning with a 9-year-old's handkerchief in her pocket. She was also the only one who had spent 14 months running a 12-table diner on the overnight shift with no manager, no busboy, and no backup. The instructors taught theory. Loretta already knew the floor. She knew how to read a table in 4 seconds. She knew how to rotate stock by feel. She knew how to handle a kitchen that was falling behind without raising her voice. She knew these things not because she had read about them, but because she had lived them, night after night, alone, on $2.13 an hour plus whatever the customers decided she was worth. Bennett made one phone call when she finished the program. He called the owner of a restaurant in the short north, a place called Franklin and Vine, part of a small chain he had invested in 4 years earlier. He did not own the restaurant. He had no operational say. He had a relationship and a reputation and a phone number. He said, 5 sentences. I am sending you someone. She is better than her resume. Hire her for 90 days. If I am wrong, I will cover the salary. I am not wrong. They hired her as an assistant manager. Within 3 months, the overnight prep efficiency improved by 22%. Staff turnover dropped. Customer complaints on the morning service fell to 0 for the first time in the restaurant's history. The owner called Bennett in April and asked where he had found her. She found me, he said. I just answered the door. Grady turned 10 that spring. He had a desk now, not a counter. A desk, in a bedroom that had a door, in an apartment on East Broad Street that cost more than the room on Bryden, but had a lease and a lock that belonged to Loretta and a refrigerator that held more than 4 things. He still ironed a handkerchief every morning. He set it on the kitchen table before Loretta left for work. She no longer needed it. She had handkerchiefs of her own now, 3 of them, bought from a store where she paid full price. She did not use her sleeve anymore, but Grady still ironed. Every morning, without being asked. Because some things are not about need. Some things are about who you decided to be when you were 9 years old and watching your mother wipe her forehead with her sleeve and deciding, quietly, completely, that she should never have to do that again. Loretta paid back the loan in 11 months. 7 months ahead of schedule. She made every payment on time. She did not miss one. When she mailed the final check, she included an envelope. Inside the envelope was a $50 bill and a note written in handwriting that was neat and careful and certain. For the wallet, the tip I could not afford that night. Bennett opened the envelope in his study in the house in Upper Arlington. He read the note. He looked at the $50 bill. He held it for a long time. Then he laughed. It was the first time in this story that he laughed. It was a quiet sound. Not loud. Not performative. The kind of laugh that happens when something catches you off guard in the place you keep most protected. He folded the note and put it in the wallet. The same wallet. The black one with the silver clip. He put the $50 bill in with the rest of the cash, and he did not remove it. He kept it there. He kept it the way some people keep a photograph. 6 months after that, on a Tuesday morning in May, Loretta was working the breakfast shift at Franklin and Vine. The restaurant was full. Sunlight came through the front windows and fell across the tables in long columns of gold. She was standing near the host's stand, checking the reservation book, when a woman at table 4 stood up, put on her coat, and walked out the door. Her wallet was on the table. Loretta walked over. She picked it up. She did not open it. She walked to the door and pushed it open and stepped onto the sidewalk and called out to the woman, "Ma'am, you left this." The woman turned. She looked at the wallet. She looked at Loretta. She said, "Thank you." Loretta said 3 words. It wasn't mine. The same words, the same voice, the same sentence she had said in a lobby on South High Street, holding $8,000 in cracked hands wearing gray shoes with worn soles. But this time she said it wearing black shoes, new ones, with soles that gripped the pavement, and hands that still had the faint lines of old cracks at the knuckles but were no longer splitting open from bleach. She was the same person. She had always been the same person. The only thing that changed was that someone finally noticed. This story is fiction. Loretta is not real. Grady is not real. Bennett is not real. Miss Odie is not real. The diner on East Main Street is not real. But in the United States, the federal tipped minimum wage is $2.13 per hour. It has been that number since 1991. 35 years. That is real. 40% of American adults cannot cover a $400 emergency. That is real. Millions of people work overnight shifts in diners and gas stations and warehouses and hospitals right now, tonight, while you are listening to this, holding families together in silence, and the system they hold up does not know their names. That is real. I wrote this story because honesty should not be a luxury that only the comfortable can afford. I wrote it because a woman should not have to choose between doing the right thing and keeping her apartment. I wrote it because somewhere tonight there is a Loretta standing behind a counter at 1 a.m, looking at something that is not hers and putting it back, and no one will ever know. If you know someone working a night shift right now, someone holding things together in silence, someone whose integrity has never been rewarded because the world does not hand out trophies for doing what is right. When doing what is right costs you everything, send them this story. Search one fair wage. Find out why $2.13 is still the number. Subscribe. Stay for the next story. See you in the next one. That is worth telling. That is worth hearing. That is worth passing on.